Honoring Promises to Native Nations Act. This is a first-of-its-kind bill which took 3 years to draft and would provide mandatory full federal funding to Native communities for housing, education, and health care. The bill is called Honoring Promises to Native Nations Act, which has been in the works for 3 years and has extensive input from tribal leaders and citizens. It's a direct response to the damning 2018 report by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights detailing the government's chronic underfunding of tribes in 5 areas: housing, education, healthcare, economic development, and public safety. Warren's bill, which is being introduced in the House by Rep. Derek Kilmer of Washington, lays out where to direct mandatory full federal spending in all 5 of those areas at levels that they should have been all along. Realistically, is this bill going to pass anytime soon? Probably not, and likely not ever in its current format. But Warren would argue that it's not really the point of the bill. Think of it more as a starting point for lawmakers to fully grasp and talk about the government's systemic underfunding of tribes and then have legislative solutions ready to act on. The plan is so comprehensive that individual pieces of it could easily be pulled out and move as standalone bills. One proposal in the bill, for example, is to pass a so-called full elephant fix, which would give tribes full criminal jurisdiction over non-Native Americans who commit any crimes on tribal land. Tribes currently only have limited jurisdiction over non-Native men who are violent towards Indigenous women, which hampers tribes' ability to punish them. Meanwhile, more than 84% of Native American women experience domestic violence, and a vast majority report being victimized by a non-Native person. This provision alone is a major public interest issue for tribal leaders and could pass on its own with bipartisan support. The push to come up with legislation like this at all came in part from then Rep. Deb Haaland and one of the first 2 Indigenous women in Congress. She and Warren previously tag-teamed on the effort to produce Monday's bill. For generations, the U.S. government has clearly failed to fulfill its commitment to tribal nations, Warren said in a statement. This bill is sweeping in ambition to make good on those commitments and empower Native communities and provide its much-needed legislative blueprint to deliver significant long-term funding for the advancement of Native Americans. I will link the full 244-page bill in the description of this video. The proposal has strong support from tribal leaders all over the country. National Indigenous advocacy organizations are also hailing the bill's introduction. Fawn Sharp, president of the National Congress of American Indians, said it is indisputable that the U.S. government has been chronically underfunding tribes for decades. Quote, "The underfunding is no longer a quiet crisis, it is a raging humanitarian crisis all across Indian country," Sharp said in a statement. The Honoring Promises Act is a critically important piece of legislation and the first of its kind designed to actually honor the promises the U.S. made with tribal nations. This is really big. This is really big. I'll link the full article for people to read in the description of this video. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, especially with so much tribal and potentially bipartisan support. Well, I guess we will find out. See you next time.